Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrei Shevchenko. On behalf of the team of Media Center Ukraine, Ukrinform, I greet all the journalists that tell the world about our fight for freedom. And our today's guest is the Minister of Culture and Informational Policy of Ukraine, Oleksandr Tkachenko. And we count to hear from the Minister about the expert Council on Denusification and Derusification under the Ministry and other topical news. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours. I would like to clarify, because when this news started, they started asking us, what are we going to destroy the monuments or rename the streets? What's going on? We have to clarify. According to the law, the ministry cannot rename the streets, for instance. We cannot, on our own, recommend to remove monuments or recommend theaters not to play Tchaikovsky, for instance. Regarding streets, it's the authority of the local councils, local municipalities. Regarding monuments, there is a certain procedure. The monuments of the national importance, they could be renamed or not destroyed, but removed to a different place by decision of the government under the initiative of the local authorities. The local authorities can make decisions upon the application of KIP. So it's up to the local authorities. So we have limited limitations as the ministry. And then when I have a request why they removed the Suvorov monument, and they address us, but nobody asked us to remove this monument of Suvorov. There is the initiative, and there's people that want to do it. But actually, the information that we get is that the local authorities, they write that MICP did not apply to the Ministry of did not do, but they have to do it. It's their decision. For this process not to be chaotic, we made 3 roundtables that are devoted to toponymics, the monuments, and creations, and the libraries, and pieces of art, plays for theater or music for theaters. And for this process to become within the framework of law, it's important to recommend local authorities have the expert councils that we create under the ministry for all the specialists, philosophers, historians, local activists can discuss the questions and make this process transparent to the max and make this within the legal framework. So it does not look like independent decision. Let's remove this monument or destroy it. Of course, it's a national decision of many locals to remove the items that were pressed on us for decades. Those creations, they're monuments, they're many. And we have to treat those renaming as a European and intolerant country. This process will be ongoing. In many cases, I support it, in many cases. But I have my standpoint on certain initiatives as well. But if we want to be a normal European state, even in the war conditions, we have to demonstrate correct attitude to this process. We're not afraid to call it derusification because that's what is called by people. Therefore, the work will start. We are creating the content of this expert council, and tomorrow you'll see that on our website of the Minister of the Ministry. What kind of people would there be? I knew that you were going to ask that. Well, for who we invite is, except for ministry representatives, Oleksandr, Vladislav Smak, she's the head of Fedor Trashuk, head director of National Museum of History, Ivan Perchelak, dean of the historical faculty, Pavlo Nizhnik, historian, Alexander Krasovitsky, publisher, Helen Muller, artisan, Igor Pashivalo, Director of Museum of Revolution of Dignity, Yuri Savchuk, Director of Museum of World War II, Urslav Zherpyksky, Film Director, Tatiana Pilipchuk, Literature Museum in Kharkiv, President of Library in Odessa, Elena Korcheva, Musical Academy, Nikitin, the writer, Klitschko, the artisan, Oleksandr Kol, Week, Vera Geva, Art, Artists of Simkiv, Karetnikov, representative. So in general, there's very diverse. They have to receive requests. The committee discusses them under ministry, but we will be enforced by the specialists for this to have an organic look. And this is an invitation. Yes, it's an invitation. We don't have confirmation from them yet. We have to finalize the document. The last question. As for experts, how would you formulate the criteria that they have to apply to approve, to say A or nay? For what is your personal standpoint? One is imposing Russian culture, pushing, or fully canceling it. Where is the balance? Where's the fine line between it? Well, during the roundtable, those questions were voiced constantly, and there were different formulas. By the place, for instance, what do you mean? Bulgakov was born in Kiev, yes? If many communities would not like to see monuments of Bulgakov or street of Bulgakov, but for many Kiev people there, that's a Kiev citizen for the first thing. There were signs that all the related to Russia, let's put on the ban. But there questions arise. How do we consider the activity not to, pour the baby out of the cradle? For instance, Kazimir Malevich, the Ukrainian painter, Paustovsky, he's Russian writer, but his best creations were made in Kiev. So there's many additional questions arise. What are we removing from toponymics, from monuments, from which books, from which creations, and what do we do to them during the war and after the war? I'm happy that all the theaters don't want to play Tchaikovsky during the war, and we call on European colleagues just for at least to pause it, as to pause or refuse to cooperation with Russian cultural representatives, because Russian culture as propaganda is the top of the cruise missiles that is aimed from Kremlin to Europe. Ukrinform question. Good day, there is a question. Can you roughly say when to expect first results of the work of this commission? This commission that works in the ministry, it's working. We receive some requests and we give our recommendations, A or nay. Mostly yes, but it's a legal process. The local municipalities, they want to remove the monument, for instance, of Suvorov from one place to another. Please. But we need to receive requests. We cannot order them. See? I will add to that. Indubitably, it could be a dubious question, and people find that will not be grateful for this work. From your standpoint, the state on the central level, how much should be involved in this topic? Well, at least we should speak in the language of recommendations. If they ask the ministry that, like the monuments in the villages or in the cities, or city streets, they ask us, are you responsible for this as a ministry? We say no, we're not responsible for it. It's a responsibility of local municipalities. We can just recommend it to them, recommend upon the results of the roundtables. But it will not be a directive like remove Suvorov or remove Catherine II. We will express our arguments, how we can approach this process and this issue. Changing the topic, your ministry plays a big role in coordination of our operations on the soft power in Europe and in the world. where you communicate with the ministries, with your counterparts, when you look for approaches to the media community, to the civil society. How successful is that, and what topics are most interesting there? We have about 450 actions, events of cultural events in Europe. It's relevant to Europe. We help our artists. We have discussions with our counterparts in the ministries. Ms. Claudia Raut, the Minister of Germany on issues of culture, she was answering the questions about good Russians. And on the standpoint why Ukrainians don't want to perform together with Russians, was an interesting reaction. There were heads of local municipalities. And the question is there good Russians who are on the same table? Reaction like this. They were waving their heads. But to explain, we have to explain. Why? Because when we are speaking about political responsibility of Russians, it's not the same as the responsibility of the nation. Political responsibility, they elected Putin. That's the political responsibility. But here we face also the complications because we're preparing the concert in Amsterdam, devoted to candidacy of Ukraine to the EU, and there were interesting conversation with because in some with the Suspilne media, because they said, okay, we'll look, we'll hope that will work. We get this message. We hope that will work in Amsterdam. We stop the program of this briefing now. Oleksandr Tkachenko, Minister of Culture and Informational Policy. Stand with Ukraine.